careful. You might learn something.
Let's go.
You are now tuned in to the Factual Opinions Podcast with your hosts. I am Pharaoh. Straight facts.
Welcome back, world. This is Factual Opinions Podcast. This is Season 5, Episode 11. We're calling it Eye of the Storm for a number of reasons. One, because we actually are at the halfway point of 2025. Can you believe that already?
Damn,
In June.
it's the halfway point. Sheesh.
We're in June, man.
Yeah, it's June. You're right. We're in June.
Also, we're calling it Eye of the Storm because it does seem as if everybody we know is going through something right now, but we are going to get through it. We're at the halfway point. We're in the middle of the hurricane. It's your gracious and humble host. I am Pharaoh, checking in with the Brown, Bruce Wayne, Big John.
Yes, sir.
And I am so happy to have another one of my dear friends back. I know I get on his nerves sometimes, but please, everybody, welcome Will West, the best Nate, back to the show.
Right.
You know it. I'm back.
Well, he's fresh off his vacation from Houston, ladies and gentlemen. That's why he looks so vibrant and refreshed. He got away for a little bit.
Right.
But no, of course, happy to have Nate back. Now, normally the way we do this on Factual Opinions Podcast is I like to get any of the solemn stuff out of the way first and acknowledge anything like that if we have news in that regard. I want to dedicate this show to actually two of my dear friends that I grew up with and went to school with, great friends with them and the family. Charles and Joanna Lawrence, a couple that I hold in high regard. I was in their wedding, requested by both of them to be part of it. John, actually Nate too. We all went to Schroeder, with them. Nate, of course, went on to Hughes, but me and Big John graduated, went to school with Charles and Joe. Very close still with their three boys, Travis, Trayvon, and Taj. We have some sad news that I can at least acknowledge at this point now because the cat is out of the bag. We lost Joanna Lawrence, Charles's wife, on Memorial Day. She passed at the age of 38. Very dear friend of mine. People don't even know the relationship that me and Joe had, conversations that she'll be taking to, her grave, that she has, given me advice on and talked just as a sister, as a friend. Very genuine person. And, when they say that saying, the good die young, this is another example. So, Joe,
Sure.
we love you. Charles, continue to hang in there, brother. If there's anything you need, we've been in touch. All you have to do is
One call
call.
away.
Yeah. So, want to give a shout out to the boys and the whole family.
My condolences. I just want to say I've been knowing Joanna for years. She's always been the gentle soul. Charles would push her buttons. He would get on her nerves. But he loved that woman dearly. I remember that when he made his move on her, I said, "Oh Lord, here we go." So, I mean,
Joe was always
just give.
She always gave a conversation, a smile, a warm hug if you needed it. She was always that person. And funny thing about it, we know. I affectionately called Charles Hawk. That was his nickname, when we played football with him. But Hawk loved Joe, man. He would get so bad, we'd be cracking jokes. He'd get fire breathing, man. He ain't play about Joe.
No, he didn't at all.
And the crazy
He played
thing
no
about it
games
is,
about
man,
her.
Hawk is one of those people, and I know he's going through it right now, and I feel bad for him because I've never seen Charles have a bad day. He's always in good spirits. He's always upbeat. So I know it's killing him right now. And as somebody that I grew up with that I love, man, I hope and pray you can get through this because, that's a lot.
He's managing it day by day. Like I said, when I talked to him the day of, obviously he was still in shock and trying to process, things.
Obviously, of course.
And then there's still going to be an adjustment. And that's the part that, unfortunately, for someone like myself who has experience in this regard, losing loved ones that close to you, as does Charles, and I'm not going to put all of that out there, but this isn't his first rodeo with this. It's just the shock and awe of somebody that you talk to on a daily basis not being there. I don't know that your body or mind ever fully, grasps that or adjusts, to that. But, Charles does has family. He has friends around him, loved ones that continue. I just checked on him yesterday, asked him, did he need me to bring, something to eat, out there to him. And he said, no, he was cool. But, I'm continuing to stay in touch with him on a daily basis, because
That's good.
that's all you can do, man, because words are not going to do anything at this point. It's just continuing to let somebody know that you are there if they need something, and not just saying it either, because there's a lot of people that will say that during this time period, and I don't want to go down that route. But
and even if he say no, we just gonna pop up on him. I don't think we just gonna pop up.
Yeah, for sure.
Get that echo out of there, Big John, whatever that is.
That was me?
I don't know who it was.
Oh.
That looked good
me.
though, whatever you was drinking. But no, I mean, in honor of Joe and Charles, the last story that I'm going to tell on that before we transition is when Charles and Joanna had their wedding, and you guys know this, the public may not. It was a hellacious day for me personally. That evening before, I was still coaching at Purcell. We had the game. I believe someone in Norwood's, crowd stuck a, 6-inch nail through my tire in my old Jeep that I had. And it was hell trying to find a place last minute notice on Saturday of the day that you had a wedding who could patch your tire or put a new one on there. So I was going through that. I had some other stuff going on in my personal, life and everything. And it was all I could do to pull it together and make sure I made it, to the wedding, because I know they wanted me in it. The family wanted me in it. And I was trying. And it almost came a situation where I was going to have to make some calls and say, hey, might not be able to make it. But I made it threw on my monkey suit, a.k.a. tux, and went
monkey
through.
Suit is crazy.
That's what I call all those tuxedos. Yes. And I made it through the ceremony, and I felt like I did a good job of, fighting through what was, going on. But I know I probably didn't crack as many jokes as I usually would in that setting with people that I consider family and have been around for so long. But long story short, Joanna knew and could tell, because you can't fake it around people that you grew up with and know you like to the core. She could tell something was going on even without me saying anything. But I still didn't want to detract from Charles and Joanna's wedding. So I believe it was either the next day or 2 days later. Joanna, she didn't text. She called me and asked me, was I okay? And checking in on me, because she could tell something was going on. Now, I want you to think about that, how selfless that woman was. A day or two after her own wedding, she was more concerned about a friend she grew up with who she could tell was visibly going through something, and thought to check on me. That's what I'm always remember about Joanna and what type of person she was.
For sure.
Mm.
So again, definitely the family and boys and everyone else, I want, send my heartfelt condolences. And I know me and Big John will definitely be there on the 14th for the arrangements.
Yeah, I'll be there too.
Yeah, and I don't even do funerals. There's family members I haven't shown up because I can't look at them in that setting, but I'll be there for this one.
For sure.
So we want to transition on a lighter note. Man, there's a lot that just happened in the past few days on the sports tip, I guess. I do want to talk Bengals a lot this episode leading up to training camp, but we still have the finals coming up tomorrow between the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I call it cornfields versus the plains. Absolutely no interest whatsoever unless you live in
I
those
thought you were
areas.
going to say something totally different.
Don't egg me on. I'm trying to be as professional and not be biased with this because I'm hurting. Although I don't believe in moral victories, I do want to give a shout out and a hand clap to my New York Knicks because they did make it to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years against the Indiana
Dang.
Pacers. Lost in
Shit.
6 games, 4 games to 2. Still made it a series, especially after starting down 0-2. But this is where I want to go with this out of the gate. So since when did making it to the conference finals for the first time in 25 years, having a 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, defeating the defending NBA World Champions that Nate liked so much, the Boston Celtics, which they were going to do whether Jason Tatum went down or not. Since when did that become a prerequisite to get you fired? Is what I want to know. Like, when did that become a bad thing?
I think they fired the wrong person. When I say that, they should have been fired that GM 2 seasons ago.
Leon Rose?
Leon Rose should have been out of that position 2 seasons ago. I
Well,
personally feel like this is my opinion. This was a setup. He didn't think that team was gonna be as successful this season. To be honest, I think he thought like, all right, we'll have another mediocre season and then we'll figure something out, and then I'll get rid of Tibbs regardless. So I think this was his initial plan, anyways. I think he was gonna get rid of Tibbs, and then I heard there was a relationship between Karl Anthony Towns and him as well, and something about being benched in game 2 when he played terrible in game 2. So I feel like relationships are stronger than this organization. I'm gonna just say
I've
that.
heard that, but even if that was the case and you were leaning towards getting rid of Thibs, expecting a mediocre season or maybe we'll win, a round in the playoffs and advance to the semifinals and call it a day. Well, you did better than that, though. That's the thing. Like, so to turn around and fire a man after you were literally 2 games away from reaching the NBA Finals yourself, yeah, you came up short, to your rival Pacers in the playoffs. But again, how do you justify after a 3 seed and knocking out the defending champion, Boston Celtics, getting rid of a man for reaching the conference final? It doesn't make sense. Maybe some of the other stuff in the relationships with Cat and Thibs stubbornness and the short rotation that wears guys down. I heard all of that before, but you did make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, so
It doesn't make sense. And maybe it's some stuff that, Nate alluded to, but it's almost kind of the blame game thing. I'm going to make it look like this so they don't focus on me, possibly. But it doesn't make sense. If you make it to the East Conference Finals, your job should be in jeopardy. Now maybe you think because of the way Tibbs coaches that it's not going to be beneficial in the long run, especially with these teams that have deep benches. I.e., Oklahoma, Indiana, Timberwolves, where they have a larger rotation. Maybe you feel like, and I heard this quote, from a sportscaster saying, well, Tibbs is playing 90 styles basketball in an era where it doesn't work. But it may have worked somehow because he made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, maybe you feel like he can't get over the hump, and that's cool, but you can't lose your job for overachieving, especially not doing it in 25 years.
And that's what
I'm gonna
happened.
say this too. They knew the resume. They knew he played long minutes. His players adjusted after the first year. They adjusted
Everywhere
to
he's
him
been, he said the same
playing
thing.
those all them minutes. They adjusted to that.
But other than a year or two with Mike Woodson and Carmelo, what have the Knicks done the past 25 years
Not a
before
damn
Thibs
thing.
got there? This was the most consistent run of Knicks basketball going back to the early 2000s.
Yep. This is
That's
the
the
most
bottom line. Like,
consistent
you can
y'all been in
complain
the
about,
playoffs.
yeah, you
This is
can
the most
complain about
consistent y'all been in the
his
playoffs.
his coaching, style and look. I mean, we know he ran some teams into the ground in Chicago, and probably underachieved a little bit in Minnesota. but it wasn't like Thibs did a bad job. And like John just said, you just overachieved. So you fired a man for overachieving, and now you have to find a coach that's going to be able to come in, because New York is not a regular job. We know that. Now you have to find a coach that's going to come in there, be able to relate to the guys that are in the locker room and sustain what Thibs just did. Honestly, that's even harder than the road that you probably faced just sticking with Thibs and trying to continue.
I only know one coach right now.
But Nate said something that really stood out and
I was
made
just
sense.
getting ready to go back to that, John. Go ahead.
I'm not familiar with the New York Knicks GM, but the decisions you made being the GM, you can't even fill out a bench right now.
Nope.
So you made the mistake of overcompensating, making bad deals, and doing things that you shouldn't have done. You can't even build out a bench right now if you want to. You have no assets really right now to do that. So you firing a coach to overachieve with what you gave him.
Yep.
And
That's
like
what
I
I was
said,
just
it's the
saying.
blame game. It's like a magic trick. Look over here so you don't see what I'm doing.
Well, Leon Rose is, just to give you a little background, or anybody that's tuning in that may not know, he was a former agent, and he was one of those big time networking. Another guy that he had working for him, I'm not even sure if he's still with the Knicks in a consultant capacity, was Worldwide West. Um,
Nope.
he's
He's
not.
not. They ain't
Okay, yeah.
affiliated no more.
Yeah, well, that's who he came through the door with,
Yep.
and they were more. Their job by Mr. Nolan was to make the Knicks attractive and cool again for guys to want to come there and play, because it had gotten to the point where it really wasn't, and that's why people like Kevin Durant, made decisions to go to Brooklyn instead, when initially he wanted to go to New York, but the situation was so chaotic and it was just not anything appealing. Now you have a situation where in back-to-back years you made deep runs in the playoffs. You went to the semifinals. Previous year, last year, you went to the Eastern Conference Finals. To me, it would have been the time to keep things consistent and continue building the momentum that you have versus tearing it down, because now you have to find somebody not only that wants to come to New York, is equipped to deal with that, and make a good decision that's going to permeate with the players. So
I only
I'm
know
looking at,
two coaches right now.
who's that?
One's not coaching, the other one is. Jason Kidd and Mark Jackson. I
I
don't
was about
see
to,
anybody on this list and Mike Brown. I'll give you Mike Brown as well.
Mike
I was about
Jackson and Mark Brown were on my top
Mark,
five
yeah.
wish list, but they weren't the top coaches that I was looking at.
Yeah. So my thing is, with this vacancy, who wants to deal with the things that they're gonna have to deal with going with New
I
York?
don't think anybody wants to deal with Mr. Nolan. That's number
No, yeah, and
one.
that's a problem. That's the
Because of how
problem.
many
That's what we're
coaches that
saying.
he's
Me and John
hired
just
and
said that it makes no sense for him to still have a job. Makes no
well,
sense.
but Leon
I
Rose
don't
is
even
one.
agree with Stephen A. Smith like that, but it makes no sense how he
Leon
still got a job.
Well, look, Leon Rose is one thing, but you can make the argument. You could say again, the staffs that he's put together and the product that he's put together on the court, again, has been more consistent than anything they've had over the past 25 years. You may not like the methodology or the way he goes about it, but he has restored some consistency to Knicks basketball as GM. Now, Mr. Dolan, the owner himself, I've talked to people about this before. You can forget about that. It's not even worth complaining about, because when the man owns the team and Madison Square Garden itself, you can forget about
We ain't talking about Dolan.
it. I
Now
just wanted to make that
you
clear
going
that we
around
weren't
every
talking about Dolan.
you avoiding what we saying right
but
now.
even but
No, I
even
just wanted to make clear we're not talking about Dolan, because he ain't going nowhere.
He
but
ain't
even
going
but hold
nowhere.
on,
How
but
can he go somewhere?
Even with Nolan, I know his reputation and what he's done, but he's also noticed that, and he's also stepped back. He's
A
also
little
stepped back
bit.
some. So if he's putting his trust in others and say, "Look, I want to make this a more advertising location," he stepped back. So, like Nate said, you got to put the GM. Yes, he's put together a consistent team, but you're telling, like you said, you fired a guy for overachieving. And I'm not saying Cat or Bridges I can't pronounce it, Ojanobi or lemons, but you're giving somebody lemons and telling them to make a steak. It don't work that way.
It ain't working like that.
Well, it don't work that way, but we've seen it often in sports happen that way. Like I've said, and we won't transition yet. But I was just talking earlier to some fellow Bengals followers about that and what they expect Al Golden to achieve this year as Bengals defensive coordinator, and we'll get into that later. But I said Sweet Lou last year was scapegoated, in my opinion, because you were asking him to cook it the same meal without giving him the same ingredients.
Right. And that's what they did to Thibs. That's what they just did. Like I took bad ingredients and made it work.
But to me, it's not bad though, because some people question how the Carl Anthony Towns trade would work, and I thought other than him
It's working
occasionally,
out better than what
yeah,
everybody
that's what
thought.
I'm saying. Other than him occasionally wanting to be a 7 foot, shooting guard, Cat does his
300
thing.
pounds shooting go.
Yeah, Cat does his thing. Mikal Bridges was an excellent, addition to the lineup, at least, offensively.
But I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the the others, as people call them. Yeah, we know Bridges and Cat Bronson gonna do their thing. Ojanobi gonna do his thing, but where's the help? It's a team sport for a reason. Like it's team. Like
You need more help, but again, even I personally was against and said it on this platform initially, the OG Ananobi, RJ Barrett trade, and that turned out to be a great trade and made more sense than what I was thinking at the time. So I mean, he has made certain moves, speaking of Leon Rose, that have worked. I don't agree with resetting right now with coaches, but what I do want to do is redirect this, because since it's already happened now, there is a wish list that I personally have of who I would love to see the Knicks make their next head coach. It's probably not going to happen, but the first name actually for me would be Jeff Van Gundy. Now, I don't know if he wants the job again, but people in New York would overwhelmingly welcome him back. And like I said, if you do something like this, you need to make a splash higher.
yeah,
Don't go out and hire Mike Malone, or
I got
Budenhauser,
a
or
feeling that's what
however
they're
you
gonna do, bro.
pronounce it. See, but that's my thing. Like, don't
I got a
do
feeling that's what
that.
they're gonna do.
I want Van Gundy. I want Mark Jackson to have an interview. I want Mike Brown, as Nate, mentioned, to have interviews if we're going to do this. Those would be my top
I
three.
think Mike Brown would probably be the best fitting because he's defensive minded as well. So I kind of feel like he's probably gonna be the best, and then he'll bring somebody in to be the offensive man.
And I feel like he's gotten a raw deal as a head coach everywhere that
Hmm.
that he's been. And then you have to look at the staffs that Mike Brown has coached on or under,
Yeah,
with Pops down in San Antonio, Steve Kerr up in
in
Golden
Golden
State.
State. Yeah,
Yeah, so there's not going to be a more qualified candidate than Mike Brown at this point, other than, like I said, the
they go
players
get
for the
Mark.
Clippers were really raving about Jeff Van Gundy and him, being on the staff this year out there with the Clippers. But that's another person. Speaking of the coach that he coached under, it's a long shot, but I would make a run at Ty Lue, man. I really would. He would be on my
Oh, his
short list
contract
of
is up.
candidates.
His contract up this year,
Well,
ain't it?
it's coming up. I
It's
know
coming up.
that
I think it's next year. I'm sorry.
Jay Will on ESPN had mentioned Udoka and trying to steal him away from the Rockets. And I'm like, I wouldn't be against it, but I don't know how you pull that one off. You got a better chance of snatching one of them coaches I just
Udoka ain't going nowhere. He
mentioned.
like Houston too much.
Well, and he's revived a Rockets organization.
That was in the dirt.
Yeah. I mean, I know they lost to Steph and company, but they were the number 2 seed in the Western Conference.
Yeah, they ain't
And
been
what?
that high since
And
Akeem
what?
and them
2
was there.
years since he got there? Yeah. So no, but I would start with Jeff Van Gundy. Honestly, I don't think Van Gundy wants that pressure anymore, and none of us have ever been clear on why exactly he walked away from the gig in 2001. before the Knicks fell. But now in
I think it was.
hindsight,
I think that was contract issues.
I think it was he saw what was on the horizon and what happened for the
Yeah,
majority of the
that's
past
true.
20 years. Because, and I had to put this out there, that is around the time that Mr. Dolan took over running the Knicks, after his father's passing.
That's a fact. You're right.
So maybe he saw the writing on the wall. But yeah,
I
shout
don't
out
think
to
they're going
Thibs.
after Van Dunny though. I don't think they're gonna do it.
Shout out to Thibs. I do want to, thank him for injecting life into my New York Knicks, and whether people agree with his basketball philosophy or not. Again, he did get the job done. He got the Knicks back to the playoffs, and achieved a lot in the past
Mhm.
5 years, man.
And Phoenix just got a new coach. They signed a young guy. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, the Cavaliers assistant
Yeah,
coach.
the Cavaliers assistant. That's who it is.
Yeah, so um, we'll
This
see
could
if
be an interesting summer. I'm gonna tell you that.
there's gonna be a lot of coaching movement.
With Giannis keeping the door open.
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't know exactly what's gonna
Yeah,
happen with
so
the Giannis situation and the Los Angeles Lakers, because I don't want to leave them out, so people like Tez to say that I'm either
you
or.
could have
No,
left them out the conversation. You could have
nah,
left them.
I'm throwing a diss actually at my Lakers. That's why I'm bringing them up right now. So some people would argue that they overachieved in their first year with JJ Redick at the helm as head coach, and maybe to a certain degree they did. But that all world trade for Luka Doncic, which I said was going to reflect around the playoff times when no one was there to play defense, did rear its ugly head, and that's exactly what happened to the Lakers. But I'm going to throw one more shout out. People got mad when I continually criticized the selection of one Bronny James to the Los Angeles Lakers. But again, I wanted to highlight a couple things. The Lakers have had a lot of success with second round picks, including one young Josh Hart, who we saw make a major contribution to the Knicks playoff run this year.
Hold on. You can't do that. No, heck you no.
Do what?
Josh Hart was nowhere as good as Bronny is right now. That's one thing.
What did you just say?
Josh Hart was not nowhere as talented as Bronny coming to the league. He just was on a national championship team. He was not
John,
that good in college.
John.
All right, I ain't got nothing to do with it.
He was not that good in college. Don't
Okay.
hype that
And
boy
who
up.
cares about um as good in college? Because the
Okay,
point
you're absolutely right.
the
He's
point I'm
gonna he's gonna
making
prove a lot of people wrong this next season. I'm
the,
gonna just say that.
the point
I'm gonna
I'm
just
making
say that.
is you make a projection into the pros, and then now looking at hindsight, the real point that I was trying to get to is the second round picks that the Los Angeles Lakers have selected all time and what they've turned into. So
Okay.
I'm mentioning people like Ruben Patterson. I'm mentioning people like Nick Van Exel. I'm
Hmm.
mentioning people like Josh Hart, Jordan Clarkson, Derek Fisher, who were second round picks, and you chose Bronny James
Okay.
over those individuals. Now, and then I saw something online, and I hate when I see this now because there's a lot of people that just like to troll and they don't really know from which they speak. Somebody made a Derek Fisher quote when he said, "If LeBron James gets a statue, I better have two of them out in front of crypto.com center." And of course, somebody ran with that and said, Derek Fisher thinks he's better than LeBron James. And I'm like, if that's what you think he was saying in that statement, then you need to just be quiet because that's
People
not
just
what he
talk.
was saying.
People just talking. People just talking.
What he
That's
was
why we don't pay
saying
attention to people on social media.
what he was saying is the same thing that a lot of people said when you have people who have now had their jersey retired, like Michael Cooper and everybody else, from the Lakers history, and deservingly so. What Derek Fisher is saying, and I've been bringing this up too. I'm like, Coop was part of, five championships in the '80s, and we can go through the other players that we know. Pau Gasol, has two championships with the Lakers and already has his jersey retired. Why does Derek Fisher, a major part of five championships with the Lakers, not even have any type of recognition from the team. Now
Can I say something? You know what I just thought about that you brought his name up?
what
Why
Celtics
is
fan?
Michael Cooper's jerseys retired?
Because here we go. Because he was part of 5 championships in the 80s and a major part of that Showtime team, especially as one of the lead defenders on that Lakers team.
Is Bill Laimbeer's jersey retired?
For the Pistons?
No,
I'm
not Laimbeer. What's his name that was in LA? Shoot, the goggles.
Kurt
Uh,
Rambis?
yeah, is Ramp's jersey retired?
No, but he has way more influence than he should still currently with the organization.
That's why I'm trying to understand why Michael Cooper's
Because
jersey
Michael
retired.
Cooper was wow.
So
He really
basically, you
got
say
at Kurt
he
Rambis.
got a participation trophy. That's basically what they try to say.
I'm just not understanding
Coop
why his jersey's in the rafters.
was way more of a contributor to those championship teams than Kurt Rambis was. I
Okay.
understand the parallel that you're trying to make,
Yeah,
but calling Kurt
I was just
Rambis,
asking the question. You know, I don't give a damn what's going on in LA,
calling
but
Kurt Rambis and Michael Cooper equals or the same as far as what they contributed to those Showtime Lakers. That's like saying Rick Carlisle and
I'm gonna have to address this on Facebook. I got questions
that's
now.
like saying Rick Carlisle and Kevin McHale were equals on those Celtics teams.
Well, Rick Carlisle was young though. He was a rookie,
Or even
sophomore there.
or even comparing Cornbread Maxwell to what's the one that used to talk all the trash, ML Carr.
They killed Cornbread. He wasn't even doing nothing. I will
That's
never
fine,
forget that
but
movie.
I expect that from a Celtics fan. So
I'm just asking. I just had a question. That's all. I just was asking
anyway,
the question. Why?
Basically, he called him Rick Fox. That's basically what he's trying to call him.
see, there you go with that.
Tony
That
Bray says everyone can have a jersey in the rafters, and I've been a Lakers
that's
fan all my life.
disrespectful too, acting like Foxy wasn't
Bro, I'm
the
joking, man.
contributor.
I
Everyone can't have a
mess with Rick
jersey in the
Fox.
Raptors, and I've been a Lakers fan all my life. Love Derek, but no.
Derek? No, you tripping, bro. Like I'm not even
First
a
of
Lakers
all, that
fan,
ain't how you spell his name, brother Tony. Number one.
but Derek jersey definitely should be retired, bro.
I give Derek. Because Derek hit a couple key shots. He was on that team. He's a part of that team. He was a captain.
He definitely contributed. Like
Yeah,
you can't.
yeah.
He's not a first ballot
I'm just
Lakers Hall
questioning
of
Michael
Famer,
Cooper. That's what I'm questioning
but
Michael Cooper. I ain't questioning Derek Fisher. Just Michael
uh,
Cooper. I'm like, I didn't look back at the series. I don't watch them 80 series. Because he was getting cooked by Dr. J in the whole series before.
A
So,
lot of people get cooked.
Dr. J though,
A lot of people got cooked by Dr. J. That ain't really
like
I mean,
that's like saying, "Oh, I got crossed by Allen Iverson, so I'm whack."
bro, no.
shout out to Mike P. We done with the 80s.
So before we get away from basketball, because I do want to get into the football talk, NBA Finals are between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City.
This would be the first ring for either one of those organizations.
Well, technically
Well,
not.
technically not, because Seattle took over OKC. You're right.
Yeah, it will be the first with them located in OKC. Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be something? They finally got it without KD and Russ.
Russ and James Harden, it'd be crazy.
Yeah. But SGA is the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
That team collectively has proven to be the real deal this year. And you got to give it to the Indiana Pacers. And Tyrese Halliburton has turned into the new Reggie Miller.
Oh, man, he tortured y'all.
He's that annoying. And
tortured y'all.
He gets the job done. And I see that let his ugly dad back in the arena.
Yeah, he had to sit up in the skybox, but he was
they
there.
they put him in timeout. He allowed to be
he
there.
had timeout.
But y'all call that man the most overrated player in the league. He was mad. I would do the same thing.
Who's y'all? I didn't call him overrated.
I said y'all as in, if I don't know your name individually, as Cat Williams would say, but the league called him the most overrated player in the league.
Yeah, they did.
I wanted the Knicks to draft him that year instead of Obi Toppin, who also ended up on the Indiana Pacers beating us. But
Should have
they
let him
didn't,
go.
and they made the trade for to clear the space for Jalen Brunson to be signed during the offseason. So, who are you all picking between the Pacers and the Thunder starting tomorrow?
Go ahead, Big John.
I'm gonna pick the Thunder. I know how Indy plays, their pace, and they keep moving. But the Thunder got young legs too, and they got a team that can slow you down and make them play their game. So, yeah, I'm gonna pick the Thunder.
I am also with the Thunder. Too much offensive firepower and too much defensive firepower. So they do it on both ends, which is pause. They do it on both ends. Pause. Say it again. Just because they control the game the whole time.
I tried to. I'm going to divert away a little bit here, and then I'll make my pick, and I'll come back to it.
That's a mess.
I tried to get Nate to come out and grab some Mexican and a drink, but it's after his trip. I was going to treat him for his birthday, and Big Ronnie commented. So we got to make that happen.
Yeah. Hey, man.
So.
Tell Brody out, bro. You got salty at us for eating, Brody. All the meals you be posting, man. All the meals, all the trips with that clear water you be taking, bro.
All them NFL cut steaks.
Right, don't do that, bro. All them smothered grits and all that stuff you be posting.
Oh yeah,
bro.
he be cooking some craziness. Like, God, I just want to see the deep freeze, see what it look like.
Right. But it's probably going to be the Thunder, but I'm going to pick the Pacers. I'm going to be the contrarian and say that the Pacers do have a shot. If anybody does, because OKC plays some serious defense, especially in the half court. So, but if the Pacers can get them to running and play their series, it could be very interesting to see.
I just don't think they have enough of offensive firepower. Pascal Siakam is very inconsistent. He did great this last series against y'all. He destroyed y'all this series. But outside of that, he's not a very consistent scorer.
But like I said, they get out and run, but you can't outrun a team that can run with you.
That's a problem.
Like you ain't.
OKC is one of the top transitional defensive teams in the league.
You're not having your big man and certain people run up and down the court while cat lagging or somebody falling behind. That don't. No,
that
they don't
work.
Yeah, that was pissing me off, man. Because
the
Pacers were running even after made basket.
Yeah, they was getting made basket. They get it up the floor.
They knew that y'all didn't have a big rotation. They knew.
I'm gonna tell you who gonna be the
run at certain positions where y'all couldn't, and they took advantage.
I'm gonna tell you who gonna be the Achilles heel, and he's gonna be the problem for the Pacers. It's gonna be Turner. Turner's gonna be the problem. He can't guard. He can't move his feet. He barely getting up and down the floor. He year 13. He's old. He can barely hang.
He can still hit that open 3-pointer.
That's about all he got for you.
But also, who they gonna put on Siakam if he come out and play?
They got 3 guys on the bench they can put on Siakam. What you talking about?
I'm just
asking. They got the other Jalen Williams. They still got they got Chet that's gonna start.
I was gonna say, and he got to defend Chet too.
Yeah, and you got to defend Chet. It's just too much firepower, in my opinion.
But it's still gonna be a snooze fest because I hate to say this, but
everybody keeps saying that. I think it's actually gonna be a good series.
Because you're a basketball guy. Who wants to watch Oklahoma City and Indiana?
But y'all, a lot of people, and I'm not saying you, Al, I'm just saying a lot of people are looking at the names versus who they are. The young cats can actually play. I know everybody wants major market teams or certain teams that got history in there. I get it. But they can actually.
I don't want to.
I feel like they're gonna. I feel like it's gonna be a good series, but I feel like people ain't gonna watch it. Just like you said, oh, it's OKC and Indy. But this year, last year, it's a changing of the guard right now. The young guys are actually becoming more developed.
Okay, this is the byproduct of the small market owners like Dan Gilbert up in Cleveland all those years ago whining because LeBron James left, and the changing of the collective bargaining agreement to and NBA rules to make smaller market teams like this in Milwaukee have a chance again in the game, for Milwaukee to win its first championship in over 50 years. Now, it might have been a one-off thing, but this is what happens. But okay, it's like you said, Big John, it's a changing of the guard, so we'll see what happens, and we'll see what happens in the ratings.
Yeah, but for the past 7 years, hasn't it been a different champion for the past 7 years? It hasn't been a back-to-back in a while.
Nope.
But there's still a difference between Nate Celtics, winning last year, and like I said,
he's still bad.
Like I said,
they got one, but they've been choking anyway. But they finally got it.
Okay, but they've been, and even in 2022, they lost to the Warriors. What I'm saying is there's still a difference between marquee teams and historical teams like that making it, and you'll see the correlation in the ratings regardless. I mean, this could turn out to be a good series, okay, even if it is on the court. I'm just saying, I guarantee you notice the difference in the ratings.
Oh, I mean, of course,
this year
it's gonna make a difference in the ratings. I mean, because you don't have those marketable locations in it, of course.
But that's my thing.
The whole state of Indiana about to watch this finals.
Well,
whole state of Oklahoma about to watch this finals.
First of all,
Boomer Sooner.
The Thunder is the only pro team that Oklahoma has in the state. Like,
to be honest, that's the only professional team.
That is a college state for sports. Indiana, they got the Colts and the Pacers. Yeah, okay. But Oklahoma is definitely a college team, a college state.
They worried about Boomer Sooner. That's all they worried about.
Even when KD, Russ, and and the Beard was there, they also said, like, when we were there, it felt like a college team. Like, the fans came out.
They were young though. When they
were young, but it probably. I mean, to me, it still feels like that with SGA and them. They
don't have anything else to root for.
Yeah.
Until Boomer Sooner starts.
So everybody's gonna be tuned in.
I will keep saying that, Boomer Sooner. Now,
I mean, they still got them gas in Blackwater. I'm mad. I'm 40. They still got them.
They do have Gundy out there at Oklahoma State.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
I'm 40.
Look at me. I'm a man. I'm 40.
With the mullet fully intact. Before we transition away from basketball, so with the Eastern Conference Finals ending, another end of an era came about, and inside the NBA on TNT.
Yeah, man, that hurt.
You
hear they have? Did you hear they have for negotiation going somewhere else?
Yeah, I'll get to that. I just know I was emotional watching them.
Tough. Yeah, that last episode.
Because that's the type of stuff I get emotional about. Other people, normal people, they get emotional about other stuff, and I get emotional about sports. So watching Kenny and Ernie fight back tears and everything, man, that's pretty tough, man, because Inside the NBA has been out since 1989. So we grew up on that.
Yep.
Now, word on the street and from what they've even, mentioned is they kept the band together. They'll be moving to ESPN. Now, my thing is, it's going to be different.
They go censor them a lot.
Because, again, Charles is not going to be able to get on there and talk about the big old women in San Antonio on Disney.
No. I'd have rather them go to NBC. To be honest, I would have rather them go to NBC.
But why not? You let Pat McAfee say what he want to say.
That is a fact. Is it because he a black man?
Well, I don't want to say that.
I don't even want to go there. I just know.
I'm just saying they give certain people free reign.
Yeah,
and others not. You let Pat.
They put the disclaimer out there before their episode every
they
episode.
Do, but also, which he's earned it. They let SAS get away with a lot of stuff too.
But they didn't want. They wanted Pat McAfee's ratings and to connect to a younger audience.
That's a
I
fact.
know that they've had issues with him there internally at the network also. There have been reports of that. Not everybody's necessarily on board for that. And Pat has had to fight to keep some of his independent stuff and the things that he wanted negotiated through the door to be allowed
Yeah, he
to
almost went
do.
back to YouTube.
Yeah.
He almost went
So
back to
it's not
YouTube
like
after his
it's
last
peaches and
contract.
cream. And you're right, Big John. Stephen A. Smith, but that's over years.
Yeah, like I said,
They
he's earned it.
finally started to give
He's earned it.
Stephen A. segue to say the safe cuss words like damn or hell, on air. And we know what Stephen A. is there to do. I won't get too deep into that, but we know what audience and demographic, he's meant to, still keep a part of the show and riled up. So it's still going to be different.
I like
What
Mad Dog better.
Mad Dog
Man,
with his New York self. So, nah, but uh, let me ask you guys because I don't see it being the same inside the NBA TV show. They could say the producers from TNT are coming along the ride too, so they'll still be producing the show, but it'll just be coming on ESPN. Don't tell me that there's not going to be a difference with that airing on Disney.
it's definitely gonna be a difference. Now, if they let them be themselves, because I know at this point, you know, Shaq gonna do whatever he want to do to secure the
Yeah,
bag.
for sure.
They're not gonna censor Shaq.
Shaq could never be censored.
No, that's what I'm saying. They're not gonna censor Shaq. Now, he is smart enough to know what he can and cannot do and how far he can push it. They're not gonna censor Shaq, and Chuck don't give a damn.
Chuck don't either.
He don't give
Yeah.
a damn. Now, if they let them be them,
And this is another thing, Big John. You said it right on the money. The thing is how they're gonna make them play them into the situation that they're in.
right?
Because they're gonna be stepping on some toes. They coming in
Yeah,
stepping
but
on some toes.
I don't even think Ernie, the most humble of the crew, gives a damn about stepping on
No,
anybody's
for sure.
toes.
Ernie will never. Ernie's been in the game too long to be worried about stepping on some toes. I think they go short Scott Van Pelt. He's gonna get cut. He's gonna get minimized on them NBA nights.
Or they're gonna bring him. They're gonna bring him into the fold and incorporate him.
Well, Scott's got his own. He's got his
I,
own
I mean, I
segment
know,
on
but it's like
ESPN.
he still may have a time slot, and they probably how news do where they'll shift to this and shift to that. They may bring him along with it. I mean, who knows?
What's up, Captain?
I just wonder how this is gonna work.
I don't know.
Not from the standpoint of I don't think that Shaq or any of them, like you said, are gonna change anything they do, but Disney will.
Disney is a dangerous game to play with.
But also, they will. But
Well, we can't.
hold on, wait. They will, but also, if their bottom line is up, they're not going to care.
Disney wants to make money, but they want to make it a certain way. That's
Yeah.
why a lot of the analysts and on-air personalities, like Stan Verena, just got let go. That have been there for a long time are doing that. Number one, because they don't want to pay those salaries, and number two, because they are transitioning to a different, dare I
Yeah,
say, more inclusive.
and I'm not trying to be
Hold
funny.
on, because I want to get that out there.
Okay,
More inclusive
I get it.
look.
But here's the thing: you bringing on Shaq, Chuck, Kenny, that sounds good. But like what what Jimmy Johnson say, I treat all my players equally, but there's no point in treating them fair. What Shaq and Chuck can get away with, those other people can't get away with because they are who they are.
Yeah.
So they may let those people go because they don't have the same names and the same cachet. They don't bring the same crowd in.
I don't want them to get rid of Malika and Perk. Perk funny.
Yeah, Perk funny, bro. Like, but I
Stephen
watch
A.
I watch ESPN, man, really for Spears and Clark, honestly. But
well, Ryan
he keeps
better
stepping
reel
on
it in a
toes.
little bit.
He keeps stepping on toes. But like I said,
Ryan Clark.
yeah,
Yeah.
everybody I watch at ESPN seem to get the hook. Whether it's Jalen Rose or Max Kellerman, they seem to always get the hook eventually. But I definitely, like I said, Clark and Spears, man, I watch because of them, honestly.
Well,
And you know
because
what?
again,
You know what? Jalen Rose had just signed a contract with Turner. He had just signed a contract with Turner.
I know that's pretty jacked up.
So now what do? Do they bring him back to ESPN?
They won't because Jalen is too
Oh no,
butthurt.
you know what? He might go to NBC because that's where Reggie's going. Reggie's going to NBC.
I used to,
So
I used
Stan Verrett was his name. I'm sorry that I had mentioned that ESPN is parting ways with a Howard alum, long time veteran. I know he had been out there with ESPN LA for 19 years, and he didn't want to come back to Bristol, but they let go his partner. What was his name? Neil.
Oh, you talking about the brown skinned gentleman with the gray hair? That's what you talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Okay. I got you.
yeah,
He been
20,
at ESPN
25 years with
forever. That's what
ESPN.
I'm about to say. He been there forever.
Yeah, he been there a long time. What about Mike Wilbon? You know they was trying to give him scrutiny too.
Um, Now, as far as NBA covers, that may change, but part of the interruption ain't going
Ain't
nowhere
going nowhere.
until him and Tony decide they don't want to do it no more.
Yeah.
So he'll be
That's
safe
I did not
at
know
that.
that's one of their highest grossing shows. Did not know that.
He's been there for years, man. That's
Yeah.
people tune in to ESPN to watch that. That's just
But if they can get rid of the people that we just mentioned, and Verrett and Jalen Rose and Max Kellerman and plenty other,
Max deserved to get fired.
analysts,
I ain't
Trey,
gonna say that. I ain't gonna say Max.
look, Trey Wingo,
Yeah,
Mike
Trey
Golick,
Wingo was surprising.
Golick, these were some heavy hitters,
Yeah, it's true.
Um, dare I say the only people that would have been safe are Linda Cohn, and if the late great Stu Scott was still alive, I would
Hmm.
think he would be,
Oh yeah, he would still be
safe.
around.
But
He would be a big
you
dog though right now. He would be a big dog, like
but
VP
you never
level.
know, man. With them letting these people, go, nobody's, actually safe.
Yeah, nobody is safe, but like I said, it's just certain names that hold a little bit more weight. And also, if they did do something to Shaq or Chuck, man, people would be pissed. They
All
ain't
right,
gonna.
I'm just saying
I mean, I know,
that
I know,
it's not gonna look the same. I don't care what nobody
Oh,
says.
it's
No,
not
it's
gonna look.
not gonna
It's
look the
not gonna
same.
look the same. Of course, they're gonna tell them like, "Look, we love what y'all do, but we gonna have to tweak some things."
Oh,
They gonna give
everything's
them.
getting ready to get switched after
Oh, they
as
gonna
soon as
give
this
them. They gonna
finals is
give them
done.
the mama speech when you go in the store. When you get in here, don't look at nothing,
Don't look at
touch
nothing, don't
nothing,
touch nothing.
don't
Charles
breathe on
Charles
nothing.
can't get on there and say Victoria's Secret and said Antonio, and if they wear them bloomers down there, that's not gonna work.
But man, the
It's just gonna
funniest
be
thing about
interesting. It's
that
gonna be
show,
interesting.
man,
I just don't want them to get rid
was
of
the funniest
Mbumakwe
thing
and,
about
and
that show,
Malika.
man, was somebody say out of pocket, something out of pocket, bro. Shaq ain't even gotta say nothing, but his laugh makes you laugh, bro. Like he got one of them laughs like that Chris Davis laugh that make you want to fight. Like,
Dude,
like he ain't
bro,
even
you
got to
laughing
say
too
nothing.
hard, bro.
You know what Jeff used to say about that when Charles would talk about the women of San Antonio. He was like, Shaq laughed like he knows the truth.
Oh yeah, he do for
I was like,
sure.
well, Shaq went to high school in San Antonio, so
He
he
did.
so he knows if it's the truth or not.
Mm-hmm.
But
And they always talk about that dirty ass water down there in
he's like that little creek down
Galveston.
there. He's like that ain't no damn beach.
That dirty ass water.
Right.
So, but I'm glad that we'll at least see them on TV. We'll just have to see how
How it works
this
out.
this works. So, moving on to our beloved Bengals. There's a lot going on with them, whether it's negotiations for the stadium lease or two holdouts on defense that I want to talk about right now. It already was not an impressive defensive unit last year, and now you've got your leading sack man in the NFL, threatening to sit out and Trey Hendrickson. There are reports that the Bengals have offered, contract up to 28 million at this point, and he's still standing firm that he wants his 30 million. I don't know what the length of the contract would be, but I know that's an issue too because he's 31 years old, you know, um, this year. And obviously that bustling trade market that he thought was going to be out there when the Bengals invited him to go ahead and find a trade partner didn't materialize either, Big John.
Because I don't, like I said, man, it's just a GM is not going to want to take on that contract, like you said, even though he is productive with a defensive end that age. It's just not smart. Now, he can come in, do damage, and prove everybody wrong, but nobody's going to take a chance on that.
But how detrimental is that going to be to the Bengals if he is not ready to go by training camp?
It's
He
going to
wanted
be
like
very,
40
it's going to
mil,
be
didn't he? I
very
mean, he wanted like
detrimental.
4 years, right?
It's going to be very detrimental because right now you have a new defensive coordinator. The defense looked terrible last year. He was one of the few bright spots, the bright spot. And you have a new defensive coordinator, and your best defensive player won't be out there.
Yeah, Nate, that's part of it too, is the length. Trey wants the long-term security. And again, everybody's looking at it. Well, just pay him. He got, the sacks or whatever. Like, the Bengals have to be sensible in this. And I know this is going to
That's
piss
like him
people
signing
off when
that
I say
4-year
this.
deal. He had one good year, and then he's trashed the next 3. You
That's what
wasted.
I'm saying. Like, what do you expect him to be by year 2 or 3 of this contract?
Yeah, four year. As much as I do enjoy watching Hendrickson play, 4 years. Come on, boss.
Yeah, that's just a little outrageous.
Like
That's greedy.
2, like we can negotiate on 2, but 4. Yeah.
I told you if it was me, I would have offered him 2 years, 40 million. Take it or leave it. You
Take
don't
it or
like
leave
it,
it.
I'll trade you and get some extra draft picks during the draft. Is what I would have did. Because no, you're not going to get one player that's going to make up for his production, but you could collectively potentially if you get enough, pass rushers and guys out there. So yeah, this is going to be
And
interesting.
nobody wants him. That's the bad thing. That's what's making it even
No,
worse.
people want him. They just don't want what
They
he
don't want
wants.
to pay. They ain't paying him that money.
They don't want a monster contract, and they're not going to give him the length of contract that he wants either.
But you
You
can't
know,
have a defensive line by committee drafting Miles Murphy, and I'm not going to condemn the young man they just drafted yet because I haven't seen him play. But your production in college does not
We ain't
speak
gonna
to
talk
what you're
about
going to
that.
do.
oh,
So,
we're gonna talk about Shamar Stewart because that's where I was going next with that.
when you draft Miles Murphy and Stewart, even if you have something by committee, what you got?
So
What
let me listen to this. Listen to this, guys. So this is where, since we can ready transition to that pick, this is my thing. They're not paying you. They say they're not gonna cover your insurance when you first get in there. That's part of it, right? Am I right, Al?
mm,
So my thing, him being younger, he has to be smarter about it. So the way he can be smarter about it, like shit, excuse my mouth, I'll take an insurance policy out on myself, about 500,000 insurance probably pay for that. You pay about $100 a month. It ain't nothing too crazy. 120 a month at the most. You take this insurance policy out, you show your performance, you continue to show your performance each year, get compensated for you. That's all you got to do. Get compensated for what you already paid for your insurance policy.
here's where I agree with Stewart and his dad, who's been very, vocal as of late about this. All we want is the same guarantees that Amarius Mims got, that Miles Murphy got, that Dax Hill got. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with them asking for that, really, because what you're doing is you're changing up exactly what he said, the verbiage, the
Yep.
wording, and the protections in there. If I'm him, I'm like, so why you gonna start doing that now with me? and I was a higher pick than those individuals, regardless of college production or whatever. He's and he was a higher pick.
I think what's making this into play is potential. They've been doing this the last 2 to 3 years. It's been about potential.
NBA draft.
Potential.
It's about potential, right, Big John?
Potential.
But you have to have.
And I think I low key think the Bengals know they kind of dropped the ball on this.
They didn't.
I think they kind of know they dropped the ball on that
They
pick.
picked him. I'm not gonna say the young man doesn't have talent. They picked him so they can lowball him. Your potential has to be backed up by some kind of data. Not that you're big and fast and you have no production.
Everybody in the draft is big and fast.
Yeah, that whole Texas A&M draft class that Jimbo had, they all underachieved. They did not do what they were supposed to do, and he was part of it.
That's a fact. You're right. You're absolutely correct.
Jimbo
because he has the measurables of Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett had damn near 40 sacks in 2 years at Texas A&M. This man doesn't even have double digits.
What was it, 6, 5?
I think 6, 6.25, probably.
Well, I told you my opinion, especially when he came back with that. Oh, I got quarterback pressures. I just didn't, sack him.
Why you ain't getting?
What's Sir Charles say? The operation was a success, but the patient died.
Right. You ain't GTD. You ain't get the draws. You ain't get. It don't even matter. You ain't GTD. It don't matter.
He said, "I told you."
All you did was smell it.
What does GTD mean?
All right.
Got the draw. Just because you look at him, don't mean you're getting it.
Here's the thing. Regardless of what we believe in his production, he was selected with the 17th pick.
Should he have been selected, though? Should he have been selected?
We were watching the draft together. We know, at least in our hearts of hearts, the Bengals were going to draft Walter Nolan.
Yeah, for sure.
If he didn't get picked, one pick ahead of him. Now, how they had Shamar Stewart number 2 on the draft board is beyond me, but
with
okay.
All the defensive ends and pass rushers still left on the board, you draft him. That doesn't make sense.
I know, but okay. He's been picked now, and this is the point that I'm trying to get to. He was picked with the 17th pick, so he has every right to say, I want the same protections and guarantees as anybody else drafted at my slot. The Bengals are trying to get by at this point, taking a little bit here, taking a little bit there, because especially the money that we doled out, this spring, and not wanting to fully guarantee something for somebody that they're kind of like, we got questions on. But the fact of the matter is, again, you did draft him. So now you can't slight him. You do have to pay him what that draft slot is worth and guarantee those protections. That's the bottom line. Now, they can continue playing hardball, but here's what's going to happen on both sides, because we've seen this before with holdouts. I don't care whether it's Andre Smith, Achilles Smith, whoever.
Yeah.
Every time somebody holds out, it just seems like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, they come in behind the 8 ball because, they can give you the little thumb drive. They can give you the laptop and say, here's what we're working on doing. It's not the same thing as you actually being out there, getting those live reps and receiving the coaching. That's number one. Number two, when somebody comes in late and they are behind and they start trying to overachieve, it always seems like they get hurt in training camp. They pull something, break something, because they're out there lost, don't know what they're doing. They're trying to get up to speed, and that's what happens. We really can't afford for that to happen with Stewart. We're going to find out if he can play or not right away, but he needs to be out there, acclimated and ready to go. And that was the whole point of why we were so upset, because we're like, man, we needed something more guaranteed with that 17th pick. So we got to see what this kid can do right away. And him coming in behind the 8 ball because he's not practicing because of a contract dispute, that's not boding well.
Yeah. You can do anything in shirts and shorts with a helmet, but nothing gets you into football shape, but playing football.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you said that right on the money.
So if
You
you're
got to
not
hit,
there,
get hit, and
if
get
you're
back
not there
up.
participating, sweating, running around with pads, doing stuff, you're not going to be in football shape. It's going to be somebody that's more well equipped, your opposition, more than you, because you haven't took those reps and took those, snaps.
So worst case scenario for a defense that already came in with issues this year and a new defensive coordinator learning a new system. Are we thinking that both of these deals or one will get done before training camp, or do we think none? These guys will be sitting out come training camp time.
I think they're both going to be sitting out.
I think Hendrickson will. I feel like if they play the word game with Stewart and try to get his contract somewhat close to what he wants, I think he'll sign. I don't think Hendrickson moving. I don't think he's budging.
Mm. My gut feeling at this point is that both are going to be sitting out
It's too late. We're getting too close.
because mandatory minicamp is getting ready to happen. Anyway. So now we're talking about, at least in Hendrickson's case, fines are going to, start accumulating, and it's going to get real, ugly at that point. It's going to get worse, not
Well, we
better.
got 2 weeks, or is it 3?
I think 2 for mandatory minicamp.
I see Joe and them already there.
Yeah, they getting that work in. Uno and T especially, they didn't have no excuse this year. They like, oh, we got the bag, we got to show up.
We're going to be here
Man.
bright and early.
Big John, we got NCAA getting ready to come out, man. Again.
They say this is the better. They said this is probably the best one.
This one I'm definitely gonna play because I bought the first one and I've been working so much I ain't even get to play it for real. But
They say they got real life coaches on there. I've already seen Ryan Day on there. I'm very curious to see if they had Coach Prime on there.
Ooh, they probably had to pay him.
Yeah.
They'd have had to pay him.
Of course, Deion gonna get paid whatever you do. So.
And Coach Shereen Moore should be on there also with his 2-game suspension to start the year. I had to mention that. I told y'all where there's smoke, there's fire.
You said it.
And of course, people gonna say I'm biased, and there's a reason I'm saying it, and I'm like, okay, even if I am, whatever. They were cheating. Let's just throw it out there. They were cheating, Big John.
Hey,
nobody wants to admit that.
If the evidence was there, it's what it is.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. But no, I'm looking forward to the game coming out this year because, like Nate said, there's going to be a lot of improvements even from last year, which was just getting it back out there again after however many year absence.
Right.
10-year absence. But no, it was fun. I did complete 1 year on the Dynasty mode. So I hope to be able to play it a little bit more this year. But we're older now. We got things going on in life. So
I'm playing my game now, bro. I'm tired of not playing my game, bro.
Let me have 25 in.
I bet. That's fine. Shit, I ain't playing no way. Shit, I'm mad. I cried for that game to come out. The guy that didn't even play.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I played it. And I played online. Shout out Curtis and Jeff. A few other people I played online with. There's some lags online though, man.
You said it is some lag?
Yeah, man. I prefer to play people in person. Because some crazy stuff be happening, and as competitive as I am, I don't need no excuses or reasons why something didn't happen when I'm playing somebody. Some lag, so I like to play them in person. But yeah, so this should be an exciting addition to that. I think we covered everything that I wanted to talk about this week. So, reminder to everyone to please download Factual Opinions Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. If you are an audio person, the live stream video will remain up on YouTube. Of course, unfortunately, Facebook deletes it every 30 days now, which is bull crap. But please, Big Nate, do share everywhere if you haven't
I already
already
done.
for me.
I
Good.
already got it.
John, I forgot. Your guy is getting his jersey retired by the Seattle Mariners next year.
Oh, Randy Johnson.
Is that what you gonna call him now?
Yeah. I mean, last time I called him by his nickname, I got scrutinized. So
I'm just saying that's
Yeah,
that's
that
his
was kind
name,
of,
like
bro.
you
That went a
said.
I
little
mean,
too
it
far,
is,
my
bro. It
boy.
is. But like I said, man, I ain't dealing with the backlash, bro. I'm tired, bro. Can't even
So
talk.
yeah,
Can't even
Randy
talk about
Johnson will be getting his jersey retired by the
That's
Mariners
overdue. That should have been
next year.
happened.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely
but
should
him
have.
and Ichiro, got the same number. Ichiro asked him could he wear it, so they agreed. So they actually retiring both of their numbers together.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. But like Nate said, that should have
Should have been happened.
been happen with Randy Johnson. So people, we love y'all. Glad to have again, brother Nate, back in the fold. We might be doubling up on some episodes. Also try to get back to the studio because we do have to catch up a little bit from a couple that we missed to make sure that we had the right amount of episodes come years in. So again, thank everybody that did tune in today. It's your host, I am Pharaoh, checking out with the Brown, Bruce Wayne, Big John,
Yes, sir.
and Will West to Best Nate.
You know it.